What's going on, people? Welcome to United View. Welcome to the Morning View. Hope you guys are doing well, man. Smash a like on the video straight off the bat. Subscribe to the channel straight off the bat if you haven't done so already. And happy Friday as well. End of the week, man. Time for the weekend. Man United don't play over the weekend as well. Of course, Monday night, Selhurst Park, under the lights. Monday night football. Bank holiday night football as well. So it's the bank holiday weekend, man. So if you're chilling or you're just wrapping up at work, and you know you've got a long extra weekend, or you're with the kids, or you're with family, or whatever it is you're doing, big up to you lot, man. Big up to you. It's always good the bank holidays, even though within what we do, we say this. It's like, oh, bank holiday. What actually is one of those?
I said this yesterday. I said oh, bank holiday weekend, and I said bank holidays don't exist, right? How old are you, and you don't know what a bank holiday is, really? And he went, oh, guys, obviously we know what a bank holiday is.
Yeah, we know what it is.
But they don't, in the same way that they just don't really exist for football, do they? You know, football doesn't really know many holidays, does it? You know, the Christmas break, you know, over that you just get all the games, don't you? You know, doesn't really stop, you know? So same for us. Doesn't stop ever. And we wouldn't have it any other way, Fleck.
Absolutely. I mean, when it gets to Monday, when most people will be saying, right, I'm off work, I'm not doing anything today, I'm sitting and chilling. Well, we've got 9 a.m. show. It'll be match day. There will be a road trip. Then also there will be a match view. There will be loads of things in the evening, whatever news in between. Like, there is loads of stuff to do. So, yeah, it is what it is. But big up to everybody, though. Let's have a look in the chat as well, see who's here. Hard says, morning all. Danny Luciano says, let's get a quick 100 likes. I'm there for that. I'm here for that, definitely. Big up UV fam. United can't spoil the weekend, says Simon McGill. Morning Flex and Owen. Big up UV fam, says Danny Luciano. Happy birthday. Oh, sorry, happy birthday. Is it my birthday? And I didn't know. Happy Friday, Flex and Owen, says Jedi Pro. Why did I read birthdays? Because it's my birthday. John James says, big up Flex and Owen. And well, who else have we got? Evening View it is, says Tabras. And One Love, come on United. I'm sure it's because of KG, says Toby. It was KG. He was on the phone to me just before, like stopping me from going live. So it was him. But we got a lot to talk about this morning. Interesting show. Really interesting show. And in the name of Eric Ten Hag, coming out swinging, coming out fighting, defending himself over the last sort of couple of weeks, you know. And we've been talking about that. He has done an interview with Gary Neville. And there are, to say the least, Owen, some seriously eyebrow-raising quotes here. And if you haven't seen it as well, with the quotes that we're saying, I definitely suggest you do, because it adds a lot more context to obviously us just saying it and responding.
Yeah, definitely. Because, you know, with these kind of things, obviously the quotes come out, and it's interesting. And this is the case, I think, for just interviews and press conferences in general. Like, the quotes exist and people read the quotes. They go, oh, my goodness me. But sometimes it is important to know what was the question that preceded the quote and what was the conversation they were having before that quote was said. But certainly some very interesting stuff. And obviously we've got so much to get into. So let's get straight into a couple of the quotes to start off with. As Flex said, it was an interview with Gary Neville at Carrington, 30 minutes long. So it's an extended interview talking about a variety of different topics. The first of which was there was a lot about recruitment, a lot about players, strikers, the Ajax style of play, but it was a lot about players and maybe Ten Hag not being able to bring in the players that maybe he would have wanted and having to compromise because of that. So Eric Ten Hag said, this club can only have outstanding players because the expectations are so high. Manchester United is the biggest or maybe second or third biggest club in the world, the highest fan base, so expectations will always be there. Now he carries on talking about again these players and the expectations. He says everyone has an opinion about Manchester United, and it can only be outstanding players. That's players who have all the skill sets. That is the physical and especially the mental skill sets they need to perform and contribute, because we have to win every game. Which I suppose we could even pause there, Flex, right? Because when all of this discussion has been going on about Jadon Sancho over the last 24 hours, that's been one of the things, hasn't it? That's been one of the topics of conversation going, look, it's the biggest club in the world. The weight of the shirt is heavy, and the expectation is too much as well. Now, I said that yesterday, and there's other factors. Obviously, you can't boil it down to one thing with Jadon Sancho. But you talk about that just in general. You go, yes, some players, we've seen it. I'm not going to succeed at Manchester United. It's the environment's not right for them to succeed, and that's too much. And for instance, someone like a Sancho can succeed better at a Dortmund, where he's a bit more of a bigger fish in a smaller pond, shall we say. And some of the pushback of that was, no, Dortmund's a big club. I don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, with all due respect to Borussia Dortmund, they're doing more than us this season. They've done more than us than we've done in a decade, right? They've got to a Champions League final. They're in the Champions League semi-final right now. But you cannot say that the level of, as Ten Hag says, expectation and scrutiny, it's on another level. It's on another level at Manchester United. Fair to say?
Yeah, it is. People look. The problem is that because we've been shit for so long, people forget that part about Man United because it's so bad. So that teams that have been outperforming us, and rightly so, they have been because of they're well run or they've been doing some good stuff. It's almost like we're trying to say that these teams are bigger than Manchester United, or these teams are expected to be doing what Manchester United are doing or haven't been doing. But let's not forget, that's what I'm saying, because we've moved away from the standards of Man United because we haven't seen them for 11 plus years now. We forget. And it's, Man United are supposed to be winning the Premier League. That's it. Although that sounds like because when you talk about that now, it sounds stupid because Man United are a bang average team at best and nowhere near, they are nowhere near winning any top honors. I mean, you can say the FA Cup, well, we're in the final, so we are close to winning stuff. But I'm talking about Champions League, Premier League. The one that really puts you on like global football, the one that Man United is built off of. And even Man United, 3 Champions Leagues or 3 European Cups. It's not, we're not stacked for how big we are. Our actual argument is we should really have more European Cups, really, for how big we are.
Quite a few finals, haven't we?
Quite a few finals, exactly. But in terms of winning league titles and challenging for Champions League and European titles, that's where Man United should be year in, year out. That is the standard. Forget the cycle that we're in. That's the standard. That's what everybody at Man United, they haven't done a good job of it, but has been striving to do. Return Man United back to its glory. So that is the aim. It sounds stupid, but that's what Man United should do. Like Dortmund, they're not expected to win the Bundesliga. It was the first time someone different won it in how many years now?
It's like a decade, I think, something like that, close to a decade.
We know what that league is. And when Dortmund have crashed a party in the past, it's a huge thing. It's massive. Do you know what I mean? Because, Bayern dominate that league. That's just how it goes. Champions League, when they got to the final under Tuchel, wasn't it? They weren't expected to be there, but they've done very, very well. And Dortmund are a big club.
Dortmund doesn't Klopp, following. Klopp.
Sorry, Klopp. Sorry, not Tuchel. Klopp. So they are a big club, but in terms of in football, there is no comparison. Manchester United. That's not being rude or condescending. It's just the 5 powerhouses of football. Dortmund aren't in it. If you're talking Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man United, Barcelona, Liverpool. That's it. That's the 5 powerhouses of football. Then, even an AC Milan over Dortmund, even an Inter. Let's not all of a sudden now Dortmund are, and I'm not even using this. It sounds like I'm just trying to cuss Dortmund for no reason.
No, it's not. It's not
what you're saying. So what we're saying is that's why, again, the Jadon Sancho situation going back there, it's comfortable. He's in his surroundings. It's a different kettle of fish to survive in a struggling Man United and help return it back to its glory, or a really well-run club in Dortmund that has less expectations, and you're the main guy. And listen, Sancho's done brilliantly, by the way, as well. He was outstanding the other day. So yeah, Eric Ten Hag is back to what you were saying though in that quote. He's basically saying, especially the mental skill set, be able to contribute.
And that's why when he's talking about the recruitment, and when he's saying about the recruitment, that's why he's saying it's so important. He's going, it's not. Man United can't just recruit a good player, basically. There's more than that.
That's just half the criteria.
Exactly. There's
literally
more than
half.
That. It literally, it really is. So he carries on by saying, in the last decade and in this period, we couldn't always get the players we wanted. But then you have to build and you have to accept that you get talent in instead of players who already proved it in the past, which is, again, very interesting. He's basically saying, since I've been here and in the past, Manchester United haven't always been able to buy ready-made players, shall we say. You've got to go with players who you can hope to develop or can do it maybe in the future. And this is when it kind of gets into a lot of discussion about Rasmus Højlund and strikers and Harry Kane and things of that nature. So he said, we have had some choices made with talents like Rasmus Højlund. I can see a striker who already proved it, who we want to sign, and we couldn't get him. And then we went to Rasmus because he's a talent. He carried on, and then Gary Neville pushed back, goes, you mean Harry Kane? You mean Harry Kane? Eric Ten Hag doesn't say no, basically.
No, he does the whole...
Well. And he goes, Harry Kane will get you 30 goals. I think Rasmus will get there, but he needs time. It's not fair to assess him the same as Harry Kane. I would never compare two players because they are very different. He says with Højlund, I think we had the biggest potential in the striker position last summer, and we are very happy with him, but he also needs time to adapt, and we are pleased he showed his assets in scoring goals. He said he had a very good period where he scored many games after he showed it, but before and after he had some physical issues, which is normal for a young player coming up, but it has a negative impact on the team results, and that's what you have to expect. So going back to all that discussion part, Flex, then saying about the players that he's wanted to get in, ready-made players,
and the bit where he said, "Hey, we need time," because we just came up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk back to that in just a second. But like,
right, sorry,
but. And it doesn't say that there in the quote as well, but he also talks about other positions as well, because he mentions, Frankie de Jong. He doesn't, in the past, when people's names have been brought up, Harry Kane, Frankie de Jong, he just goes, I'm not going to talk about
He normally
that.
I won't exactly.
I'm not going to talk about
what I'm saying about this.
But he says this time, he goes, look, Harry Kane get you 30 goals, or Frankie de Jong, yeah, you need that kind of player. He was even saying in the interview, going, Frankie de Jong and Casemiro, well, it'd be a great sort of link up, that kind of stuff.
Listen, look, this is what will happen now because he's done this. There's going to be, again, like every single thing we discuss right now as a fan base, it's just going to be it's going to be A or B, and they're going to do that, right? Side A, who is staunch Ten Hag, is going to say, this is what we've been saying. He can't get the players he has wanted. Glazonomics has ruined him like it has every other manager. Man United are potless because it's been running to the ground, and we can't even get the players that he wants. And on top of that, he couldn't even get the players out that he wanted out. This wasn't his plan. He didn't want to have Harry Maguire still playing, Scott McTominay still saving us, and this, that, and the other, and have to play Eriksen to have to get him on a free, so we didn't have no money, or this, that. Amrabat, loan for hardly any money, Sabitzer and Weghorst. He wanted Harry Kane. And Harry Kane is, look what he's still doing. World class, best number 9 in the world. Talk to Haaland if you want. I don't care. He's still the best. Yeah. And say what you want about his age and this, that, and the other. He delivers. And he's basically saying, like you say, Owen, in past times when he would not talk about other people's players. Oh, no, I'm not going to. Now he's saying, that guy gets you 30 goals, mate. Now, and then instead, no disrespect to Rasmus, he says, in inverted commas, I've had to go for talent now, someone who hasn't proved it. So now I have to wait. You have to give us more time for that to develop. Frankie de Jong, look what he does. Look how he could have been here. The guy wouldn't talk about other players from before when it was all going on. But what he's saying to Gary Neville, and I see it now, I do see it. He's had enough. He's calling it out. Then the B side, Owen, just quickly before you come in, just really quickly. The B side now is going to say, excuses. You spent 400 million. Don't give me that crap. Rasmus Højlund is a 70 million pound striker. You wasted 80 million pound on Anthony. You wasted 60 million pound on Mason Mount, who, yes, has been injured. But let's be honest, what's even the plan there? What's he going to do? Like, they're going to push back. And I know there's more stuff to talk about, how he didn't want to play defensively. We'll talk about that as well, because that's going to go into, and you didn't want to change. So there's both sides, but he is right. I don't care what you think about the Ten Hag in-out situation. Park it. Let's just deal with the interview and what he's actually saying. It's true. It's true. Like, we are not in a position, because the club's been run so badly, to get the players that we set out to get. We can't buy ready-made quality anymore, because when we do try to go for it, we either can't afford it, or the club's been mismanaged so badly that them types of players like Bellingham and Haaland at the time don't want to be here.
It's, for me, and this is going to be a shock, there's both sides to this one, and I think they're both partially accurate. When he's talking about signing players, and it doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize that if we had Harry Kane and Frankie de Jong on the side, I think we might be a little bit better. You know, I think we might, if you've got better players, and to his point, these would be players that wouldn't be, you're having to develop them. This is Harry Kane at 29, 30, however old he is. This is Frankie de Jong in his 20s. You know, they're ready. They're ready to go right now. So if you had them, you would be better. Of course, you would be better. On the flip side of it, management, sometimes you don't always get your targets. You don't. With Harry Kane, I was a big advocate of getting him in this summer. I still to this day find it baffling how people were like, don't get Harry Kane because there's no salon value or something. That's, to me, is still a ludicrous argument. But was it a realistic target? Could we ever get Harry Kane? And you may want him, you know, I want to go out Margot Robbie. She's still not answering the phone, Flex. So, you know, it's one of those situations, isn't it? Of going, you know, you muted as well.
I didn't even know who she was until the other day, Margot Robbie. I keep hearing this Margot Robbie. I didn't even know until it was on DR.
Well, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace.
Well, I haven't seen the Barbie film.
Don't talk about it like, you never seen Wolf of Wall Street?
Not all the way through. Yeah. That's one of mine. When you haven't seen things, and I go, you ain't seen it. And I always go to watch it. I'm like, so bloody long. I start watching it. I've got up to the bit where I go, I don't know if I can leave it. Yeah, I've seen most of it.
Suicide Squad, the first one, haven't you? You said you liked it.
What one's that again? I don't know. I don't know, mate.
Well, anyway, the point
but I googled her and saw who. I know what you're saying.
The point being is, sometimes in management you don't get everyone you want, and and every manager will say that, won't they? Well, I don't get every target I want, but you got to make do. So some people will look at that and say excuses. I think his point is that if you go from going for an experienced, ready-made guy like Harry Kane to a 21-year-old Rasmus Højlund who scored 9 goals last season, you're not getting the same, are you? You're not getting the same quality.
Put it politely, no.
You're not getting the same quality. So why should you expect the same results? Which I suppose is a fair argument. Is a fair argument in that regard. But then you people go, but is that good enough of an excuse to see where Manchester United have been this season?
I don't think he sees it as an excuse. He sees it as a reason.
When he said, Frankie de Jong and Casemiro, let's stop the notion that he didn't want Casemiro, okay? Because he did. That is one of the biggest mistruths out there. Of, he didn't really want Casemiro. It's just because he didn't get Frankie, blah, blah, blah. In this interview, he goes, I'd love to have Frankie and Casemiro together. They'd link up brilliantly. So he wanted him.
Money-wise and stuff, well,
I don't know what would have happened, but clearly he wanted him. Let's like that myth of he didn't really want Casemiro. He didn't want him. That's not his signing. Let's not cherry pick. If Erik Ten Hag was the manager and a player came in, that's an Erik Ten Hag signing. We can't just get that's not his. That's not one of his. Yeah. It was, he said yes to them. He might have said yes begrudgingly, like about Weghorst. Well, in an ideal world, I wouldn't have signed him. But it's an Erik Ten Hag signing. That's what it is. So I do see what he's saying there. But I think a lot of managers could say the same argument, couldn't they? If I had better players.
There's always, that's what I mean. Whenever you look in management, right? In management, whenever you are met with anything that stops you getting results, whether it's unlucky, whether it's referee decisions with VAR, whether it's injuries, whether it's the targets you went for you couldn't afford, whether it's financial, PSR, whatever it is, it's still on your doorstep. Sean Dyche, had to keep Everton in the Premier League. They got deducted points. They got this, they got that. It's still your job to make sure we don't get relegated, mate. Like, they still got a playing squad there of X amount of players. You work with what you've got. You find a way. Nuno Espirito Santo, that's his job now, to keep Forest and make sure Luton don't catch them and they go down in these last 4 games. That's his job. Yes, they've employed Mark Clattenburg to moan at the refs and the PGMOL and all that. Yes, there's mitigating factors that you can bring up. But ultimately, if they go down, it's on the manager. That's just how it goes, unfortunately. Unai Emery, They're 4-2 down to Olympiacos. He's a specialist in winning European trophies. Nobody saw that coming. If they go out, which is likely now, 2 goals down, got to win 3-0 in Olympiacos, which is not easy. But I'm not saying he's going to get sacked. I'm just saying, well, come as far as you did, and that's what happened. Like, it just didn't go your way. Like, you're the manager. It happens. Like,
But
you
also
can't
as well,
always just come up with something and just say, I'll tell you what, it's because I didn't get this, I didn't get that. So you're right. It's on the manager.
and the whole, oh well, I didn't get my first targets, and maybe this is a reason, I suppose, to keep Erik ten Hag, because you can say it's been the same in the past. But I'm sure if you ask David Moyes, I'm sure if you ask Louis van Gaal, I'm sure if you ask Jose Mourinho, I'm sure if you ask Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, did you get your first targets at Man United? They would all collectively at the same time go, no, we didn't.
But
We
they
didn't get our
say,
target.
Owen, people would push back and say, but this is one of the main problems at Man United.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
a manager can never get that.
That might be a reason to keep Erik, because they go, well, see, that's what happened with them, and maybe they were let go too quickly, blah blah blah. But then again, from their point of view, they might view it as, well, I don't have any sympathy, Erik, because I didn't get you. You must have known that going in, because look at the past. That's why you hope for the summer coming up. That's why you hope it will be a little bit different with these new people above you, because those same people in charge before, they were well known for not getting people's first targets. Let's hope that these new people are. If they're meant to be one of the best in class in terms of their recruitment, then they should be getting your people's first choice targets. Or if you've got an effective recruitment department, you do your due diligence, you do your heavy lifting, you do the legwork so far ahead of time that when the time comes to actually step into recruitment or step up to negotiations, you've been talking to his player and his representatives for so long that you're going to get your first target because you've been waiting for them and you've been talking to them for like a year and a half or 2 years, and you're not constantly late to the party or haggling over money or getting completely rinsed when it comes to negotiations as well. So yeah, it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both with that one. But to go back to the quotes again, because of this, because of having these young players, he's basically saying we need time. We need more time.
Sorry, Owen, before you carry on, please do smash a like on the video. Big Erik ten Hag interview that we're getting into these quotes and really divulging what he's saying. We've got 178 likes, 180 now, with just under 1,300 people watching live as well and counting. So they're all going to go up, the likes and how many people are watching. So share the video, share it with your friends and whoever else. Let them know you're watching UV live, and of course do smash a like on the video, and of course, even bigger than that, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Couple of super chats here. Omar says, let's be honest though, he's not going to say he didn't want Casemiro. He's not going to say that, but he's also offered up the information that yes, I would have liked him with Frankie. And Reyes says, imagine what Fergie had to carry on his shoulders. Oh my goodness, he was masking all of the Glazers' flaws. We know that as an understatement. So yeah, smash a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already.
Yes, so he says because of that we need more time. I need more time to develop the players, more time, because basically saying we don't have a Premier League winning squad or a Champions League winning squad at the moment. That's going to take time for those younger players to develop. Now, Erik ten Hag was asked about game model. And this is why it's important to listen to the questions, not just the quotes as well, because Gary Neville says to him, with Jason Wilcox coming in, one of the things that was brought up in the media and one of the things that was brought up about sort of his job description was implementing a game model at Manchester United. And he kind of explained what a game model is, where it's you play the same style of football from top to bottom, the first team all the way down to your unders. I don't even know how low it goes, under sixes or whatever. And the question he put to Ten Hag was, so is that a case of there wasn't a game model here before, or they're looking to change from the existing game model here? What did you make of what was said in those reports? And Ten Hag said, there is a game model here. How do you think Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo are able to come up? That's because it was one of my objectives from the previous leadership team to bring that in. That in itself is quite interesting, to be honest, Flex, because he's sort of saying, well, yeah, there might be some changes that they're looking to implement, but let's not pretend like I was here and I was doing nothing and, I wasn't hitting some of my objectives. One of my objectives was to bring in, up young players. And there is proof that at least partially what was here before was working, because we've managed to bring through some younger talent into the team.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's one of the things that Erik ten Hag does deserve praise for is the emergence of some young talent. And you look at what Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho have done / are doing at different rates, but very much so. Garnacho last season was his breakout season. We started to see the kid and go, actually, something here. He's looking good. Then he goes on to have his first sort of senior season as a starter. Kobbie Mainoo, this is his breakthrough season this year. So that's back-to-back seasons where he's literally, embedded and blooded in 2 youngsters from our academy, and not just embedded them in, they are now integral first team members, starters, which on one side is indicative of how bad Man United is, that these kids got to come in and save up, but also it's indicative to how good they actually are, and can be as well. We shouldn't just, I think, because it's a poor Man United and it's very difficult for any young player to come in and thrive under these situations, we shouldn't take away from the talent that they have to display to be able to get that far. I don't care what version of Man United it is, to start week in, week out for any version of Man United, you have to be good. You have to be really, really good. And people can have their, reservations on how good Garnacho can get. Kobbie, I think, is the unquestionable, everyone's on the same page of how good he can get. Garnacho less so, but he's still very good for how young he is. You can question those things, but to be in Man United first team like that is a joke. And the pushback can be, look, yeah, but if we had the golden age of, if Rooney, Ronaldo, and Tevez was here, would we see the likes of them guys getting a kick? Probably not. I get that, but at the end of the day, once they did come into the team, it would be a lot easier for them to thrive with big players.
Well,
here,
I think
and they're doing it under tough circumstances.
The pushback could be that all the managers have to bring him through these academy players, right? And you can look at some of the academy players that are currently in the side, and you can pinpoint who brought them into the team, can't you? Whether it's Rashford under Louis van Gaal, whether it's people like McTominay, shall we say, under Jose or others. Even when Ollie was here, of course, he was the person that brought through Mason Greenwood. So I suppose every manager does that because Ten Hag's point, that is a prerequisite.
It's the Man United way, United.
That's what you have to do. But I think it's to your point, it's how important they are to this team. I mean, they are fundamental. They are vital, isn't it? It's one thing, like you said, to Jose brought through McTominay, but Scott McTominay is not the most important player at Manchester United. No. Right now, Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho, to your point, are 2 of the most important players at Manchester United. I mean, they are vital, absolutely. And you look towards the bench, and probably some of those younger players on the bench, if we had a fully fit squad, Harry Armas, etc., they probably wouldn't be on the bench if we had a fully fit team. But there is those rumblings, isn't there, with the academy at the moment? And I think it's a credit to Nick Cox, who heads up the academy, that actually, they're doing a fantastic job. And the pipeline does seem to be, anyway, stronger than maybe it has been in more recent years, isn't it? Of like, actually, man, in the next couple of years, we got a lot of really good players coming through. And you do need to have that coach that's willing to give them that, give them that go. And I think that is something to credit Erik Ten Hag for. Is he very much is willing to give those players a go. And from this interview, certainly it looks like, and he kind of showed his hand, I suppose, with one of his previous answers to Gary Neville, where he's like, well, in the event that I'm not going to get the players that I would like ideally, and these ready-made players, then I'll just pivot. I'll just bring through the younger players instead. I'll just do that. If it's clear that I can't get my first choice target a lot of the time, and it appears that we can't, and with some of the financial restrictions that we find ourselves in, and not being in the Champions League next season, expect more players to come through and expect us to sign more younger players, because maybe that's the way we're going to have to get back to the top. But if that's the case,
what he's saying.
But if that's the case, which is what he's saying, he's going, then we're going to need more time than we would if I had brought in a Harry Kane or a Frankie de Jong, because they're not ready right now. And I suppose that's the crux of the argument, isn't it? Is they're not ready right now. We're not ready right now to compete for a Champions League or a Premier League. But at Manchester United, the expectation is that not that you always have to be winning the Premier League, but the expectation is you still can't go down that low. That's the problem, isn't it? And it's about and that's kind of the dilemma. That's the debate point right now, isn't it? Of we get that the players aren't ready, but with some of those senior players in the team, that should be enough to bridge that gap for a little bit of time. That's the debate point, really, isn't it?
That's it. And look, Ten Hag, look, again, he's right in a lot of the things that he says, which are factual things. But when you look at the recruitment, when you look at the lack of sales and the way the club's been run, we already know. In the famous words of when Gary Neville said this, it's a graveyard for players and managers. Like, we already know this about Man United, and this is Ten Hag's task to undo this now with Ineos. And if he gets the backing of Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, etc., and stays here, we can see where this is going in terms of how aware they are that these are the issues. And Eric Ten Hag doing that as well. Him coming out and actually mentioning players' names and basically telling us that the whole, like, this is recruitment frustration from Eric Ten Hag. Make no doubt about it. This is him finally vocalizing that he's pissed off. This is how I see it, from some of the sins of the past, some of the players that he wanted, some of the things that he wanted to get that he couldn't get. However, he does have to be aware of that line, because if he goes over it, it becomes excuses. It does, and it becomes well, nobody gets that, like you're saying, that nobody gets their first targets all the time. People have adversities. You must find a way. Well, how do you explain and legislate for us, sort of, playing in the fashion that we've played in? How do you legislate for us facing record amounts of shots? How do you legislate for us struggling against teams who, just because we didn't get our first batch of signings, when we're rolling out 11s versus the opposition's 11s, there is a clear gap in quality, man for man, versus a lot. I don't care what anyone. Seriously, when the lower down the league you get, when we've had all these close games against, some real bad teams who probably won't even be in this league anymore, the level playing field of how close it is alarming. When player for player, you can go, Lloyd Kelly is nowhere near as good as bloody one of our players, or, do you know what I mean? Cullen is nowhere near good. It's ridiculous.
Also, as well, I think it does come across in this interview that maybe he's had a bit of a light bulb moment, because I remember his first press conference he did when he was at Carrington the first time, and he was asked about the squad, and he said, this squad, I see a lot of potential. That's what he kept saying. I see a lot of potential. And I think he thought, okay, maybe it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I'll bring in 2 or 3 big names like a Frankie de Jong, a Harry Kane-esque. I'll bring in Alicia Martinez. I'll bring in some of these. I'll do that. And actually, they're not as bad as we think they are. People are making out to be. And they've got a lot of potential. I just need to bring in those big names. And I think now, having been in the job 2 years, he's realizing maybe what a lot of people said when he came through the door, going, you say that this squad has a lot of potential. Like, a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't. And if you think that you can just bring in, 2 or 3 big names and it will be fixed, it'd be better. But by the way, you ain't going to get those big names, because Man United don't do that. You're going to get in sort of average players that we're going to heavily overpay for. And if they don't work out, you're not going to be able to get rid of them, because when we overpaid for them, we're going to give them really inflated contracts. And those players that you realize in a year's time don't actually have the potential, they're stuck here because they're on huge contracts of the past anyway. So I think now maybe the penny's dropped a little bit, where it's like it's not a quick fix at United. To be fair, Ralph Rangnick said that it's not a one window quick fix. Like, that's not going to happen. Oh, and by the way,
he also said,
and by the way, when you're realizing that, you're still not going to be afforded a bunch of time and just be given, blanket no criticism, because you're the Man United manager and you got to get results. So that's the job. That's how hard the job is.
It is, but also, while saying how hard the job is, which was absolutely right by Ralph Rangnick, and we all know it as well. We know there's not just a wand you can wave and it all goes away. But he also says it doesn't have to take 10 years as well. It doesn't, like, if you just start making some good decisions, get some good people in with good brains who understand what to do and have a little bit of a strategy to what's going on, it can be done in X amount of transfer windows if you do it. But that's the problem. Again, when we're in the rebuild of Eric Ten Hag, we wasted £80 million on Anthony instantly. I mean, Jesus. I mean, what? Straight away. First window.
Yeah.
First window.
Right at the end as well.
Right at the end. Panic. We just literally did the things. So again, this is where the Ineos thing comes into it, of like sort of saying, oh, the blind faith, what's going to change? We haven't seen it change yet, but we're anticipating. I think it's fair to anticipate with everything that Jim Ratcliffe has been saying in interviews and whoever else, and Ten Hag coming out swinging like he has been. Surely we've got to anticipate a change in strategy in the market, because again, under the old regime, we literally got a new manager under Eric Ten Hag who came with good stock, who came with high praise, who came with a good reputation. And in the very first window, we did the shit that we have always done. Probably even worse or equal to. Because like you said, them dying embers of that window, waiting all that time to even get Anthony out of Ajax for 40 to 50 million pounds, waited and waited and waited, and then paid 80 million pounds. We've done that with Harry Maguire. Like not long, like we when are we gonna learn? And that is why.
But with the Anthony one, you can always say that we know his involvement in a recruitment. We know he's got a big say. So when Manchester United go to him and say, look, we can get him, but it's going to cost 100 million euros. He can always say, and when they tell him the consequences of that, and by the way, that means when January comes, when we see how the season is playing out, we're not going to have any money. Like it's going to have to be emergency loans, Weghorst, that kind of stuff. He still said, yeah, do it,
Yeah.
and that is a call that does fall on him as well. He doesn't get. That's what I mean when I say sort of accountability. He doesn't get like a blind, well, that's recruitment's totally out of my hands. Well, no. This is the whole point, isn't it? Recruitment has been in his hands. He has been driving it. He's got the veto. He's got more say because he didn't trust those people above him when it came to recruitment too. So the Anthony legacy is just as much on him as well because he was a big advocate.
Absolutely. He wanted him, even if it was for 40 million, he wanted that guy. He didn't want Mohamed Kudus, by the way. He wanted him. Do you know what I mean? Which is insane. So, and again, eye test, we can see that was a bad choice. It's as simple as that. And that's not trying to blame Anthony for everything or be horrible to him and all that stuff. We can see that was an issue for him. I'm going to refresh because I don't look good and you do.
Wow. I'll see what some people are saying. I'll see what some people are saying in the comments as well. Rashir says Owen makes up a lot of stuff to put words in Ten Hag's mouth. MAK says you're assuming.
Wait, let me not refresh. I don't want to miss this. Go on.
MAK says you're assuming they told him the cost. The Andrew says Owen, it was Weghorst or nothing. Come on. I think you might be missing the point. What I'm saying is,
Owen, you're out of order.
This is heaven forbid. The point is, Flex has to leave as well. The point is with that is we can't. I mean, Erik Ten Hag is on the record as saying that he's involved in recruitment. We're saying as well. One of the things people are criticizing him for, even Ten Hag people are like his talent ID is not great. That's one of the things people are criticizing him for. So we can't be like, he had nothing to do with Anthony. Nothing to do with it, not at all. He wanted Anthony in, and you think and also as well. Are we really saying that when the whole Anthony thing was going on, he had no idea what the price was? I just didn't know until it was announced that it was going to be 100 million. I'm really involved in recruitment, but I have no idea how much we're going to spend. Not at all. Not at all. And I have no idea what my budget's going to be in January as well. They don't tell me. They don't tell me those things. Not at all. Come on. We have to be fair with these situations. We can't just blindly be like, oh, he had no idea. He didn't know the budget. He didn't know the transfer fees. He didn't have a clue with all of it. He did.
I think you're being extremely harsh on Erik Ten Hag.
Same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You think with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when they were going after Harry Maguire, you think he didn't know he was going to cost £80 million? Like that didn't trickle through the grapevine. I had no idea. Because if that's the case, because if that's the case, then with Ollie, then he shouldn't get the blame for 80 million quid. But we do, because he did know. And Erik Ten Hag did know how much these people were going to cost. They did. He's a football manager. He knew.
Yeah.
He knew
and they didn't go, well, again, it shows that how much belief you have in a player because they don't stop and go, well, I'll tell you what, I know I do want Anthony or I do want Maguire, but that's excessive. I mean, we're setting ourselves up to fail. They're taking the piss. I'd rather go and find a better value option. I can work with it. It's like, no, if it's that, if you can make the financials work, do it. I don't care by any means. Get him in. He's the one. So you've co-signed it.
If it was reported in the media, which it was at the time, that Man United overspent in this transfer window, so they're going to be a bit tighter in the January transfer window. If it was reported in the media, then Erik Ten Hag would have known that because they would have told him that.
Yeah.
He even said it this past January transfer window. He said it in this past January transfer window, and he said, look, we tried to look around, basically having those conversations of what's in the budget. They're always discussing what the budget is and what's in the budget. So he would have known how much it is. Like, we can't pretend that he didn't. Put it this way. My point is, and maybe I'm not explaining it very well, we can't just be like, oh, Erik Ten Hag, Anthony, that wasn't him. It was. Like, it's earlier on. It's like the Casemiro thing. Oh, Casemiro wasn't, Erik Ten Hag didn't want him. But he did.
Yeah. It's just attributing things and just being consistent. Really, it's not saying it's all his fault, and it's not saying that
No,
none of it's
it's
not
not
his fault.
saying that.
It's just attributing it equally, which is really, I just don't understand why that's so difficult to for people to just sort of be on board with. I don't get that bit. Ray Carl says, let's not forget, it's not just Kane and Frankie de Jong. We don't. Gravenberch, Nunes. Okay, because these are players we missed out as well. Gravenberch, Nunes, Gakpo, Benjamin Pavard, Kim Min Jae, etc. We spent 2 years flopping it at the board. It is a collective thing, but yet all the manager. Ray Carr says, didn't Ranić say the same thing? We need to buy young players. And Rastona says, it doesn't take a genius to play Mainu and Garnacho. 10 excuses. Descendant of the First Cracker says, Flex and Owen, according to each of you, who should leave first? Ten Hag or the players? Who deserves a second chance? Ten Hag or the players? # trust the process.
That's so broad, though. All the players should leave. Because football doesn't work like that. Like it doesn't, you know. Eric
But
Ten
in an
Hag,
ideal world, it doesn't work like that. In an ideal world, you could clear out all of that squad and make Eric Ten Hag start a blank canvas with about 4 guys.
Well, Eric Ten Hag himself has said that's not going to happen. He said it in his press conference yesterday. Because it's not realistic. That's what gets confused when you say rip it up. The immediate response is, so you're saying that you're going to get rid of everyone in one summer? Well, of course not. As Eric Ten Hag said yesterday, that's ridiculous to say. Some people, players, managers, coaches, executives, it's all on a timeline. Some can go quicker than others by the very nature of like their contracts or the nature of their job or their position. Like that's how it's going to be. So that's when you get that question of who should go first, the players or the manager. How do you even answer that?
Yeah,
well, Eric Ten Hag can only be judged when the entire squad's gone. Until every player that's there, a player that he brought in. If that's the case, then he should be here for a decade because that might be how long it's going to take
to make it do that. Yeah, Omar says, Owen, stop making stuff up with 2 laughing emojis as well. I think they're pulling your leg there.
Big bloody lie.
And Harry says, I find it ridiculous to say his entire talent ID is terrible just because of Anthony. Come on. What about Kudus, Frankie de Jong, Leacher, Cobby? Balance, guys. And what he's basically saying there, Harry, is it's not every single player that Ten Hag has got his hands on is terrible. I would, the Cobby Mainu one, he's in the academy, so that helps. But yeah, he still should deserve the credit for progressing him at the level that he did, at the rate that he did, and now look at him. Leacher, we say he's a good buy, good player, and was good at Ajax. Yeah, Frankie de Jong, we know he's top drawer. And look at Kudus. So these are players that he's had a hand in early in their careers as well. I get that. So look, but also it's all right him doing things at other clubs, but we have to judge him at what he's doing at Man United, what he's doing now. And let's look at the strike rate. Have we got to the bit, Owen? Have you done the quotes where he said about don't want to play this type of football and
well, there's a couple of quotes left. We'll get through these ones. There's a couple of ones left.
Right.
So when talking about Garnacho and Cobby Mainu, he said they bring in the levels required, but we need more from such players because football is going very quickly. Developments are going very quickly. So you can't stand still. You have to make new improvements all the time. He also said this year we wanted to make the next step. We brought in a goalkeeper who can play out from the back, a dynamic midfielder in Mason Mount, who has been injured all season, and a goal scorer in Højlund, who is young and needed the time. He then talked about the backing from the leadership teams, obviously the old one and now the new one. He has said that I have felt the backing from both leadership teams at Manchester United. And finally, when he was asked about playing more defensively, because Gary Neville said, well, given the injuries, which were referenced a lot in this interview, and it's a fair thing to point out, obviously, because of the amount of combinations, the amount of people that have been out, and a regular answer from Ten Hag in the interview was
first time he's answered like this, isn't it?
Yeah. A regular answer to a lot of the questions in the interview was, well, it's very difficult to do these things when you're constantly chopping and changing due to injuries. So Gary Neville said, well, given that, then have you thought about playing more defensively, switching formation, changing shape? And he said, quote, we thought about this, but one of my objectives here was to bring in a proactive way of play, which is basically, I thought about it, but no, I'm not going to.
Yeah,
I'm not going to.
This bit's interesting, right? Because, and again, this is all now down to if he turns it around or not. Eric Ten Hag, let's not act like he can't. And listen, I want him to, by the way. Eric Ten Hag could have the last laugh here, not this season, but if he stuck to this principle all year of playing inverted fullbacks and 3-1-6 rest defense, all of the things that Marcel talks about. And when you identify style with how we do build up like that. We do. That is that. From that I can see that that's what he wants to do. I know when I'm angry, I'm like, I can't see what he's trying to do. At times I can, it just don't work to me. I just think it's a load of bollocks. So you have to change to get us through the tough times. That's my personal, in those moments, I think we should have changed. However, though, now we've gone through the mud and we are really in the mud and we've got 4 more games to be even in more mud or stabilize or let Chelsea come and finish above us. Or there's 4 more games, we'll see. But the mud could get worse. I know that. But if by sticking to these principles, next year we start seeing it click, he's going to get all the praises by saying, you see, he stuck to it. It was difficult last year, but our injured players are back this year. It was another year for them to understand what he wants them to do. He's been back to the market sufficiently. And now we're starting to see the early signs of it. Thank God he didn't just go 3-5-2 or 4-5-1 and just abandon his principles. He didn't do it. And now he's got the last laugh. That could happen. But the feeling is right now is when you're getting licks every single game and you're getting run through and you're getting played through and you're on the back, it looks like you're ending up being on the back foot when you're trying to play on the front foot like he's trying to suggest. You end up looking quite silly and it could lose you your job. Let's just be honest. So that's the gamble that Erik Ten Hag is taking by doing this.
I think there's a couple of things, isn't there? The first bit is when he said we're trying to make the next step. I mean, it's almost word for word what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said when he did that interview on the Overlap, didn't it? Saying we were playing counter-attacking football, and we decided to change because we felt we had to make the next step into being a team that dominates games and has a lot of possession of the ball. And that, to your point, it didn't work out, and it would appear that Ten Hag's in sort of the same position, but a year earlier. With the case of Ole, it was 3 years, but in Ten Hag's second year, because I suppose of the success he had in his first year, he said, right, now is the time we got to bring in a few extra players and we got to progress. We've got to move on. And it hasn't worked out that way this year. When he's talking about we thought about going defensive, but, one of my sort of prerequisites was to be a proactive coach. My immediate thought to that is I thought about what Kenny was saying on one of the full views. And he said it quite a few times, actually, saying that I think it goes to show that Ten Hag is more than willing to fall on his sword of like, no, this is how I do it. And look, if it doesn't work out and it costs me my job, so be it. But I can say that I did. But I can say that I tried to do it my way. I could say that I tried to do it my way. I believe in this. It might not be working at the moment, but I believe that we will get there. In the long run, I believe that because this is the way I see it. And with these players that are developing, if they get given more time, if I get given more time, if we have another transfer window, which he did say also in the interview, going, this is why it's a really important time of the year because of the window and bringing people in and what have you. He believes in it. And I suppose it depends how you look at it. You can look at it as stubbornness. People have said that's part of the problem with Ten Hag is that he is stubborn and he's not willing to adapt and change at a time this season where he probably should have adapted and changed because of the circumstances that have gone against him. And some people can look at it as a good thing, as a positive, go, no, he stands by his convictions. He believes in his own tactics and he believes in his way of coaching and his way of playing. And he was asked in the interview too about the quote once again about not playing that Ajax style at Manchester United. And once again, he said the same thing of going, well, those are different players. And it's about the players bringing in. Once he basically said, like you said earlier on, I'd have to bring those players. I'd have to buy lots of players and I can't buy lots of players. So I can't do it. So, but my big takeaway from that is he's not going to change. So if you're hoping that, if you're one of those people going, I like Ten Hag, but I feel like he has to change his style of play. Don't get your hopes up because he's saying I'm not going to do that. He's saying that it's not good at the moment, but I believe it will get better if I get time. And I suppose in that regard, if whatever your opinion is on him and his future, probably he's not going to change that much then because he's basically saying, look, if you believe in what I'm doing and you think I should get more time, cool. If you want me to change, I'm not going to change. He's laid out for, and to be fair, I thought it was a really good interview by him. I thought he spoke more in depth on conversations that he hadn't really, said previously, which I think is good. And Yeah, and it's just about, I suppose, whether you've got the faith in him or not, really. I suppose next season, whether you think he should get given time under the new structure or not, or whether that new structure is going to work out. I mean, it was interesting in the press conference yesterday where he was saying that he's having these talks now with Jason Wilcox every day, and they've got to become aligned, because that's how to be successful. Ten Hag knows that by working in other sporting structures and being a former sporting director himself at Utrecht. So it was a very interesting interview, but I did think he came across fairly well, And there was also another part, actually, which we didn't get up on the screen, about when he's having to go back at the media, which I quite enjoyed too, where he was basically saying, "I've got to have a go back at the media because they talk a load of nonsense, they talk a load of shit, and I've got to, I've got to." Very interesting flex, by the way. There is some breaking news. I don't know if you, I don't know if you've just seen this. I don't know if it warrants the breaking news soundbite.
Breaking news.
Now, we know that Bayern Munich are on the hunt for their new manager. They've been rejected 3 times, of course. Xabi Alonso, Julian Nagelsmann, and yesterday Ralf Rangnick turned the job down. Well, Christian Falk is now saying that Erik Ten Hag is being discussed for the manager position at Bayern Munich. Now, it's just kind of a one-line thing there. Doesn't say
is it true, though, or not true? Tick or cross, or he's actually got green crosses. He's got green crosses,
right?
Well, white crosses and green backgrounds, but yeah, who knows?
Who knows indeed.
But
not surprising. No, it's not surprising. I mean, the Bayern thing is just a complete mess, isn't it?
It is. You don't know what because look, it's really weird. Thomas Tuchel. If he wins the championship,
I know. Well, there was Jan-Åge Flørshoff said yesterday that one of the options now on the table was to go back to Tuchel and be like, "Do you want to stay?" And they said he'd say no, because why would he say yes?
Yeah.
Of course he would say no, because like 3 months ago, you're not good enough. So you get rejected by 3 people, and then you get to Champions League semi-final, maybe a final, and actually, you're would you want to stay?
Right. Listen, make no mistake about it. From a Tuchel point of view, I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to know that if Man United did come calling, forget it's not possible, or people absolutely ripped me on TalkSport. I saw some of the comments on the video that I did when I said that if Ten Hag, what TalkSport like, they'll clip it in a way that it makes it look like you're going, get Ten Hag out now and get me to. That wasn't what it was. There was, if he did leave, who do you think would be all right? And I think Tuchel, honestly, and some people disagree with that. Some people really think Tuchel's a waste man. He's a nobody, falls out of every way. He's a crap manager. I disagree. I still think he's got pedigree. I still think he's a good manager. So I said, if Ten Hag was to leave, I think he would be a good candidate. Oh, the comments, Owen. Flex used to be all right. Now he's just a clickbait. No one cares what Flex.
They hate you.
They hate me now. But to be fair, TalkSport's viewership is very this like that. You guys wouldn't do that to me. But from a Tuchel point of view, let's make no mistakes. If he's leaving, as it stands, he's leaving Bayern. If Man United picked up the phone and said, "Do you want to come and manage here?" Of course he would want that job.
Of course I think his agents even hinted that in the media, hasn't he? He's been like, and, multiple times he said he likes Manchester United and he's got unfinished business in the Premier League and what have you. I do think that, a bit like you, I've had my reservations on what kind of fit he would be at United, but I don't even know what the right fit is at Man United anymore because the whole place is changing. What I will say with Tuchel is I do think the sort of effort to put down what he has achieved is quite bizarre. The whole wow, he's not even that good. I mean, he won the Champions League. He's got to another Champions League final. I mean, Luis Enrique might do it with PSG, but no other manager's done that with PSG. With all of their greats that they've had there. So let's not put down his credibility. I think with the Bayern thing with Ten Hag, I think, because when it came out yesterday that Ralf Rangnick turned it down, I kind of understood why he did. Because he said, I'm focusing on Austria and I believe we're doing something good here. Blah, blah.
Wait, I'm doing a KG right now. I was out of sync yesterday. I was quite busy up and down the motorway and stuff like that. He's not going there anymore.
No, Ralf Rangnick turned it down.
Ralf said no. Oh, wow.
That's why I
I'll
said
tell
they've
you
been
what.
rejected 3 times. That's why I said they've been rejected 3 times.
Bloody
Yeah.
hell. Oh,
Yeah.
right. I
And
missed
the, and
that.
the reason he said no
Know
as well,
that.
I'm focusing on Austria and we're building something here. And I thought about it because everyone was like, how could he turn it down? Because he'd have been lucky to get
Wow.
it in the first place and all that kind of thing. But think about it. He's right to turn it down. If you're the third choice and you go, I might be a bit lucky getting this job. Bayern Munich's a big job. Like, what have I done recently in terms of coaching and all that kind of stuff?
Nothing.
Then he would know that if next season one of their first choice become available, you think he's staying in that job? Of course he's not.
Or if it goes wrong in the first few months, you're on the chopping
of course he's not.
block,
And Austria, he's got that job that they've done really well. They're going to be in the Euros this summer. And he's like, well, I've got a job here for ages. Like, would I be willing to sort of get rid of all of that? I think it was very, very smart. I think it's very smart to turn that one down because he got no job security at Bayern Munich. Not at all. And that club politically is right up there with Manchester United, isn't it? So I think he was very smart in that regard. But now Bayern find themselves in a position where they're like, "Wow, we've been turned down. We've been turned down 3 times. The guy that actually we've got, the bird in the hand, as it were. We've realized actually we probably should actually keep him, but we've pissed him off, and because he's even I think." One of the Bayern directors was criticizing him for about not being able to work with sort of younger Bayern players coming through, and Tuchel's like, that's nonsense and all that kind of stuff. So he's definitely not staying. And he could win the Champions League on the way out, by the way, too. So who do they go for? Do they go for De Zerbi, whose stocks come down because Bayern are struggling? Brighton aren't doing as well recently, but he was one of the targets there previously. Or do they look at Eric and do they go, hey, Eric, you can go here. But look, if Eric wanted Harry Kane, he could go where he is. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. It would be a crazy merry-go-round, wouldn't it? Like like the movings have got. Like, imagine we ended up with Tuchel and they ended up with Eric. I mean, that would be insane. But I do know there are a lot of Man United fans who do not rate Thomas Tuchel. Loads. There's a lot that don't rate Thomas Tuchel.
Think of the managerial merry-go-round this summer. Think how wild it's turned out as well.
Pochettino didn't sound too keen, did he? Last night.
Mean, look at but all of those positions we were talking about a couple of months ago. It's right. Barcelona, Xavi's leaving. Turns out I'm not leaving now. Actually, I'm going to stay. The Liverpool one, Klopp's leaving. And they went through like 3 or 4 people. We want Xabi Alonso. That's not going to happen. We want the guy from Sporting. That's not going to happen. Now they've got Arne Slot from Feyenoord, which I think you speak to most Liverpool fans. They're like, well, we'll give them a go. But they're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. It wasn't their first choice. That was like one of their third choices as well, wasn't it? You got Bayern. And these are big jobs, and they can't get anyone to go into these jobs. Bayern, they wanted Xabi Alonso. No. They wanted Nagelsmann. No. By the way, they got rid of Nagelsmann a couple of years, like a year or so ago. Now they want him back. He's like, no, I'm going to stick with the German national team. They wanted Ralf Rangnick, who even Bayern fans were like, oh, I mean, and
like, no,
whether you like Ralf or not, but they're like, this is kind of crazy. He says no. So all of these big jobs, people are struggling to recruit for him anyway. And if you tie it back to Erik Ten Hag as well, that's one of the things from Ineos, isn't it? One of the things from Ineos, so they're sort of going, actually, there might be not really any credible alternatives out there at the moment. Just ask Bayern, just ask Liverpool. They struggle to find them.
It's it.
Maybe we don't make them.
Liverpool are on their third choice as well. So
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It just goes to show you how difficult it is and how mental it is. And that's, again, will feed into Ineos again and their decision of, actually, you know what? Yeah, let's look at this. This is, tell you what, it's tough. It's tough. Let's see. Because, there's such a lack of suitors. I find it ridiculous. Nem Green says, well gone, boys. Off topic, JT, John Terry is a disgrace. Can't believe the rubbish he come out with when he could have done something powerful, but you dodged Anton like the plague. Yeah, listen, I've been with Anton over the I saw him Wednesday, had a good chat with him, spoke to him on a personal, good friend of mine. So, yeah, that was something that's obviously really close to him with that situation with John Terry. And I didn't agree with how John Terry went about that at all. And he's been asked to be spoken to away from that situation and decline. So, I'm sure Anton will have his say and they will have their say. It's not my situation, but I'm a supporter of my friend Anton for sure, my guy. Harry says, when doing the strike rate, exclude emergency loans. And Daniel says, remembers when we played defensively against Liverpool away, he was criticised by Gary. Harry says, tap in, Erik Ten Hag was at Bayern. Of course, he is discussed. So we'll have to wait and see. There's so much going on, really. To be honest with you guys, so much going on. We have to wait and see how this pans out. But definitely, Eric Ten Hag came out absolutely swinging today in a big interview. And if you haven't seen the whole thing, the whole half an hour, I really suggest you watch it. And Gary Neville asks like really good questions as well. I think because he gets,
really good question.
I think
Get
really
away
good,
with a bit more.
provoking. Yeah, because he's him and who he is in the club. They know he's going to come with the real shit. And, look, this is the same Gary Neville was sitting on the board about the new Old Trafford. But he's also a Sky pundit. He's also a United legend. So he holds all these different aliases that allow him to be able to sort of position himself in that way. And it's good that he's done that. So,
well, at least it wasn't him and Jamie Carragher this time. I don't think Jamie Carragher would have been allowed in, especially with what Ten Hag said about him before.
yes. And he's probably still drunk from the other day as well. So
I know, exactly, yeah.
There you go. Right, guys, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. 3 p.m. We will see you. 6 p.m. Sorry,
6 p.m.
We will see you at the Trinity. Be there a bit early, 3 hours too early. 6 p.m. tonight. We'll see you for the Trinity as well. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're out of here. Peace.